My name is Frank, and I've been attending Bethel for roughly 11 months now. Um, about 11 months ago, I moved to Edmonton from southern Alberta and have been attending Bethel ever since. And I just want to say thank you for being a tremendously hospitable uh, church body. I felt really at home here so far, and I've learned a lot about what it means to um, live life with God and who He is. So I just want to say thank you for your part in that and for just being a very welcoming church body. So thank you. So today I have a few thoughts for you to ponder, for all of us to ponder as we jump into the day or as we jump into the week, or maybe you're stepping into school. That time is here for us to ponder. So to start our time, I want us to think about infinity. Okay, think about infinity. Okay, it's a bit mind blowing, but imagine counting to infinity. Okay, so if you were to start counting now, when would you get to infinity? Well, the reality is it would take you an infinite amount of time. So if you were to start counting right now, and you counted for 10 years straight, you would be no closer to infinity than you are right now. Crazy. Mind-blowing. Let's look at it a bit differently. So imagine you had an infinite amount of money. If you went out and spent $1 million today, you would have no less money than prior to your purchase, because you have an infinite amount of money. It doesn't end. It never, ever ends. So you could spend as much money as you wanted, and you would never get closer. You would never dry up your bank account, right? And we can do the same thing with time and energy and things like that, right? If we have an infinite amount, even if we use up a lot of it, we will never have less. The truth is we don't live that way very often. We don't interact with that thought much because we are so limited. We have so many limiting factors that we have to engage with every day, right? We only have so much money, right? I only have so much time. I only have so much energy. There are only so many natural resources. I only have so much patience sometimes and so much love to give, right? We are very limited creatures, and we often face a lot of limitations. We have to deal with a lot of limitations in our lives. But the interesting thing is that we serve a God who is infinite. And a lot of times when we think of God as infinite, at least this is the truth for me, I think of Him as living for a really long time. He's always been around. He's going to be around for a really long time. God is infinite. But I think it's more than that. A.W. Tozer, in his book, The Knowledge of the Holy, he talks about God's infinitude. And he says, it applies more to God than just purely the fact that He exists for a long time. He talks about the fact that everything that comes from God is also infinite, because God is infinite. And so by everything that is in God's nature is infinite. It never runs out. And he has this really interesting line where he says, God gives, but He never gives away, right? So even though God gives, He is never less than as a result of that gift. And I think Jesus says something very similar when He talks to the Samaritan woman at the well in John 4. Okay, so I won't go into the story, but I want to read one specific verse. And so the Samaritan woman and Jesus are having a conversation, and Jesus says, like, if you knew who I was, you would be asking me for a drink. And the woman's like, well, are you greater than Jacob, who dug this well that's been like sustaining us for a long time? And Jesus is like, well, here's the truth. Everyone who drinks this water from the well will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life. And I used to think that this was Jesus talking, I don't know, it's some abstract concept where it's like, okay, we just drink a little bit of God, whatever that means, and we'll never be thirsty. Like, what is thirst? I just really didn't get it. But I think as I kind of like wrestled with it and talked to a number of folks about it, I realized that I think what Jesus is talking about here is the fact that he is a well that never runs dry. Jacob's well that he dug, it's going to run dry, and people will go thirsty. But what God has to offer does not run dry. And so his love is not limited. His mercy is not limited. His justice and his desire to give mercy, it's not limited. Yet so often I interact with God as though he had limitations as well. That he only had so much to give, and I had to kind of spread it out throughout my lifetime so that, I would get what I, deserved. I would get my fair share, but I didn't want to take too much because for fear the other person wouldn't get enough. And we have this scarcity mindset with God. But that's not the case. God never runs out. And so what are the implications for us? Well, we can come to God every day, all day, with all our limitations, and say, God, we need you. We need your limitlessness, and we depend on that. And we do not have to be concerned about God running dry, or that one day we were going to go thirsty, because he always has more to give, and he's not running out anytime soon, because he has an infinite amount to give. And so for me, that's like a very reassuring thought of like, and I think it brings a lot of peace. And as we step into a world full of limitations, it can bring a tremendous amount of peace and internal okayness, knowing that I don't have to be infinite, but God, who is infinite, has more than enough for me and for the person next to me, and we can enjoy God fully and freely without limits. So I hope you all have a great day. Thanks for your time.